All right, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let us know if the audio is all right. Hello, everybody. This is Nelson for GamesMatter, and today I have with me Neil Jones, or at Jonesy Jones on Twitter, to talk about Lighthouse Games' new title, Shark Attack Deathmatch 2. It's on early access, and we're playing it right now, and you can get a free copy from at GamesMatter HQ today. Or you can go out and support the developer. It's on Steam now. It's available just in time for Shark Week. Go out and, as an intrepid diver, kill your friends and hopefully don't get eaten by anything bigger than both you and your friends combined. Hello, Neil. How are you doing today?
I'm all good. Very, very good.
I got
Yourself?
caught up in my introduction. I was like, So, tell us, what is Shark Attack Deathmatch 2 for the uninitiated?
Shark Attack Deathmatch 2 is an underwater combat game with the focus being it's not just purely deathmatch. We do have a co-op experience as well as we are starting to build up the single player experience. So the whole focus of the game is to, or certainly in the deathmatch, is to take your friends out, but with the added worry of sharks joining in on the action. It's the
Is this based off of personal experience? Were you
this
having
is
a small trip out in the ocean and we're like, this would make a great game?
We actually built the whole concept of the game was when we started building it for the Xbox 360. It evolved from building a fish tank simulator into deciding that it would be pretty cool if we added sharks into this simulator, and then we thought it would actually be pretty cool if we could swim around it. And and eventually we realized that it would actually be a lot of fun to be fighting it out while the sharks are trying to take you out as well. So it kind of evolved from there.
So there was just one initial idea, well, hey, would it be cool if we did this? That just built upon itself until it became a really cool game.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I wish there was a bigger and better story behind it, but that was the initial idea. Um, but yeah, and also an inherent fear of sharks also really kind of helps. And so yeah.
So how has the community? So this game initially released on the Xbox Live Indie Games, XBLIG. It was one of the most popular games on the service.
Yeah.
What has it been like transitioning from being on Xbox Live Indie Games to um, the PC market? What's the difference in marketing or approach you need to take to get people looking at your game? And once they're in your game, what's the difference between the communities that you've seen thus far?
I think it's actually it's been a lot more challenging, a lot more different than we initially expected. I think with the Xbox 360 is certainly on the indie charts is you live or die by that top 20 or top 30 list. And if your game isn't on that, it's very, very difficult to pull in revenue and to pull in players. We were very fortunate with Shark Attack Deathmatch, as you mentioned earlier, that it was one of the top sellers, so it remained on that list and it's still on that list now, so people can still jump in and play it. But with Steam, it's a lot more challenging. You face a lot of competition from some great indie developers, but the good thing is it's not you're not you, it's not a death if as such if you don't make those initial top lists. It's important to make the popular lists if you can, but you certainly can drive a good, fairly decent revenue to sustain development. Well, that's certainly been our experience with the early access. Another aspect that we found very different is the community is very vocal on PC, but so obviously being able to review right there and word a review out as to what they like and don't like goes a long way to helping people almost adopt the title. If they're making recommendations and changes, and me and Ed do our best to try and get them in, it almost becomes their own baby, and they really want to see it succeed. So we've had a lot of people who have really been trying to punt the game and getting it out there, which is something that we didn't we didn't expect to have such die-hard fans so early on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, you're developing the game from South Africa, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
What is it like developing a game in a, most people think of game development as only occurring in places like Seattle and etc.
Yeah.
When nowadays, especially with the independent development, not only trend but market, there's a specific market for indie games now. Um,
Yeah.
you can have developers all over the world. So what is it like developing a game from South Africa with a with a collaborator?
It's pretty well. Both me and Ed are based in South Africa, so that certainly helps. We have done early on in our sort of company's past. We did work. I was in London, and Ed was still in South Africa at the time. But certainly in developing a game in South Africa has its challenges. Obviously, the time zones, like like now, it's just gone 5 o'clock in the morning for me. Um, so you're not really exposed to it's a little bit harder to get to trade shows. It makes it a little bit more expensive, especially when you want to try and hit the big ones, as well as the game Unity workshops and sort of training there. So it can be a bit challenging, a bit frustrating there. Obviously, you can book flights and things like that, but it starts adding and making quite a bit of an expense, especially for an indie studio. Another thing that we kind of battle with is currently at the moment in South Africa, they've got something called load shedding, where they cut your power for 2 hours every few days. And especially when we were in crunch mode, it was soul destroying to be working late, and then that time almost being eradicated from being able to having to sit idle while you wait for your power to come back on. So it's had a it's had a host of interesting challenges, but by the same token, um, we have great officers overlooking the coast, and it's lots of inspiration, and it's not all bad, and people are great here.
That's absolutely amazing. So when you were beginning to develop Shark Attack Deathmatch 2, were you prepared, or at least the first Shark Attack Deathmatch, I'm sorry, were you prepared for the reception it would receive? And when you saw that people loved it so much, how did you react to that? What was your reaction? How did you handle that?
It was it's interesting. We really had hoped that because we built the first Shark Attack Deathmatch with an intention of raising the price point to at least $3. And at that point, Xbox 360 changed the way that the charts worked. So it was based off units sold as opposed to revenue. So we had a great title, but we could only charge $1 for it. So you really had to fight to try and kind of get those sales through. But I mean, we were really happy that the response was so good, and despite it being $1, we were still able to make some fairly decent revenue off it. And I mean, it certainly did help spread the word about the game. And yeah, it's always exciting seeing feedback. Some of it positive, some of it negative. You just it's amazing what the type of things that people send, and the nasty remarks as well as the positive remarks. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
you
pretty
almost
incredible that even years after the fact, when we posted up our notice about Shark Attack Deathmatch 2, people were saying that was one of the best games on Xbox Live Indie Games. It's amazing to see the developer still around.
yeah, we had when we first launched it, we had tons of requests of everyone telling us to bring it to Steam, and then we now that we brought it to Steam, we have if you look at our Facebook page, and we're just constantly getting requests to bring it to Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So it's we constantly so that's something we definitely have to worry about and get on our roadmap going forward. But it's something we do want to do. I mean, there's a lot of people. We do have a big fan base on the consoles. So I think once we've got it perfect on Steam, we'll only look to bring it across then.
So, what made you decide to make a sequel to Shark Attack Deathmatch 2 rather than make an entirely different game?
Again, it was something that we had. It was a known entity. We really there was a lot of stuff that we really wanted to add into the first one, and we knew that we wanted to try and get Unity under our belt. So we thought that we could do a really good job with Shark Attack Deathmatch 2. We wanted to bring it to Steam. Initially, we were just going to do a very simple port of the first one, but when you start playing around with new tools and obviously our skill set and development abilities got a lot better, and you don't really want to just be doing the same thing completely. So you want to push yourselves. So I think that's kind of why the route we took the route. We wanted to see how far we could actually push ourselves and how good we could get this game to look as well as play, and how many sharks we could get in, fish, wildlife, and maps and all of that. And I think it just becomes a lot more viable, especially now that we can we can it's easy to release updates and get great feedback from the community. So yeah, we just really want to see how it all work out.
Yeah, so the game's levels are very bright and colorful and vibrant. Right now we're fighting in a ruined city. That isn't something I've really seen before. So what was the thought process behind what sort of levels we'd be battling in? Is there some story that the Sharknado depicted in that sci-fi series that finally took over the Earth and now we're fighting in the aftermath?
Yeah, no, not so much a story behind each, but or rather, there's probably individual stories behind each as opposed to a collective. I think we just looked at it and thought, well, what would really be iconic and standout moments in for players and environments for players to fight in. We really wanted to differentiate ourselves from some of the other underwater shark type games, and we believe that we managed to capture the realism and beauty of the sharks. I think that's one aspect we really wanted to focus on. We wanted to put them into interesting environments. A lot of our environments are going to be well lit. It isn't sharks just popping out of complete darkness. We actually think that it actually builds to more of the fear is seeing these things swimming around in the distance, and being able to approach it and kind of marvel at how big they are or how they move.
They're almost alien creatures, even though they're familiar.
Yeah, and they, especially some of the bigger sharks, they have a very strong presence. When you're fighting other players, it's incredible how even when they're moving idly through the water, they sort of become a threat where you don't want to antagonize them and shoot them, because mayhem will kind of ensue. But yeah, back to from environment's perspective, yeah, we wanted to just choose whatever we believe would be interesting. We've got a whole host of exciting maps on the way. It's kind of a nice, from an artistic perspective, it's great because you can just go to town and just really think what would be really interesting.
Awesome. As far as a multiplayer game, especially when you're battling an unfamiliar environment, how do you ensure that the gameplay is balanced? Is that part of the reason that everybody sort of starts with the same set of tools, and it kind of comes down to who can use them best?
Yeah, I think one of the things that a direction a lot of games went was with the whole leveling up system, and then the players who had actually played longer had access to more tools, and along those kind of lines. We really just wanted to have a great game where you could just jump in. New people would kind of get familiar with it very, very quickly, as in terms of how the weapons work, and yeah, we just wanted to have a level playing field.
We are a very tough competitor in the form of Saxon, man.
I'm getting very distracted with this talking, so it's just become a passive game. But I'll go after him now. But it's incredible. Like these people get so good. Often both me and Ed will hop into a game, and we'll be battling it out, and be surprised to work out that the person is only just got the game. So I mean, there is a little bit of a learning curve, but it's certainly not as steep as, say, your Call of Duties or anything like that. I think something that we pride ourselves on, and that's also with our weapon approach, is we kind of want everyone to have a fair chance. So it certainly isn't the case of just spawn die. You can always approach a situation very carefully. You could hide out from a distance or just sneak around a bit. So
How do you
it's
design levels to harness that verticality? Because underwater, you know, there aren't these limitations that, oh, your boots have to be on the ground. You can be swimming in between buildings and up and over them, and there's all these tactical possibilities that, while they're really cool for players, they can also tend to be exploited or unbalanced. So how did you avoid that?
Yeah, it's a hell of a challenge. I think with the vertical, having the sort of vertical height, as soon as you start increasing it by by like a couple of meters or so, it starts exponentially building out the map's size and scale. So it's quite tricky to work out what is a good combat zone, size, for a map. So that's one of the challenges is just trying to work out how you kind of keep things, the right size, and players can actually find each other. That's also a challenge. Is that you have a little bit of there's some visibility limitations. Obviously where you want to keep it underwater and keep it underwater feeling. So there's always a good chance of players either getting lost or not being able to find each other. So to get around that, in all the maps you'll always find key milestones. Like you've got the Statue of Liberty's arm, you've got the Statue of Liberty's head further down, you've got a wrecked boat a little bit out what would almost be the coastline. So there's always identifiable or key milestones and landmarks that you'll be able to use to get around the map. Another good system is we've got a very clever spawning system. So it always keeps you, it doesn't put you right inside the combat, it just puts you just slightly on the edge, so you have a few, you only have to swim a little bit, forward to actually start getting into the action. So that certainly helps, and that also scales. So if you have two players are in the game, it'll spawn you fairly close to each other, so you can find each other and get into the action quite quickly. And if you've got the full eight players playing, then it scatters you out a little bit further.
So even in a game that people might be like, oh, this is simple, a lot of thought went into even the simple aspects, such as where someone comes into the game.
Exactly. Yeah. What direction they're facing when they come in. Yeah, and whether there's sort of what vantage points they might have, whether it's with being higher up or place, or sort of stuck in a crack, or inside in this case inside a building. I think a big aspect, especially with is trying to work out what sort of good boundaries to the level. And when people think of sunken city, like a sunken city, I mean, we did have a lot of requests for a New York style map. But if you start adding the actual scope and scale of some of the buildings that you would typically find in New York, it almost becomes a massive problem. It doesn't actually make for great gameplay. We did model this map off a real location. It's just on the edge of Brooklyn Bridge. So we used reference maps and reference materials. Some of the shops that you see are actually what you would find in the area. Like there's this Pick 45 slip, which is just off to the right, and then there's this other cafe, which is one of the older cafes in Brooklyn. It's the Harris Cafe. I think someone's busy looking at it now.
That knife. He got me right before you drowned too. Awesome. So these are some of these are real buildings.
Yeah.
Wow.
We try to model it on the location. Obviously, we took some liberties. The one building we try to model the interior, a bit of the interior and the shape. This cafe building over here with the car that's ran through the door. It's a building that exists. So yeah, we thought that would be a good idea, but it ended up trying to get it to resemble something fairly close to something that happens in real life. It ended up taking us a lot longer than it should have, and I don't know if a lot of people will actually realize that it is modeled off something, but it's okay. it was a lot of fun.
Man, I really admire you. You're really good, especially for talking while trying to not get murdered. Like, I'm interviewing you while shooting at you at your head. And that's an interesting thing. When you're publicizing a game, how have you done that thus far? What have you found are the most efficient and effective routes of marketing your indie game, especially for a multiplayer title that needs an active community to really succeed? I have a friend who's making Robot Rotary Disco Dodgeball, and even with the success that has had, he's
Yeah.
constantly trying to update the game, get in new players, because your players are the lifeblood of your game.
Yeah, it has been a challenge. Like I mentioned on the Xbox 360, irrespective of getting YouTube videos, especially because when we were charging $1, I mean, some of the YouTube videos we got over a million. I think one of the Let's Play videos got over a million views, and we hardly saw a bump in terms of sales, which is nice to have good recognition. Whereas opposed to on the Steam market, you live and die by it. It more so than anything else. It's trying to get videos and even articles for the game certainly do help. The big challenge that we're facing though is not many people actually want to do reviews, and they refrain from doing stuff for early access. Obviously, there's a game called Ark that's doing it, kind of breaks the mold, and it's been doing exceptionally well despite it being in early access. But I mean, certainly from our experiences, we find it very hard when reaching out to various editors and people for them to give us some coverages. They don't really want to put their neck out on the line and do a review because so much of the game could potentially change. So that's a battle that we are facing. But the most effective way that we have found, certainly on Steam, has been through word of mouth and getting evangelists of the game, guys who are diehard fans, going out and trying to bring in other people, and that's been really good. So I mean, to try and keep the people happy, and certainly to something that we do want to do is to release constant updates. We released an update on Sunday. We're adding the co-op, and then yesterday we released this new map that we're playing now, and we got a whole host of other stuff that we're going to be adding this week. New achievements, as well as allowing voice support within the game. We're hoping to have that wrapped up. So again, it's almost letting people know what our expectations are in development, what's on the pipeline, and making sure that we hit those goals in order to keep the community happy. And I think the key is, as long as we got a game that's rated well and loved well, it's just a question of time to try and for that community to grow. Something you have to look after.
Absolutely. Having made a sequel to a game, what are the difficulties in making a sequel? Did you have to think, man, it has to be bigger and better? How do you do that to make a game better than its previous iteration without inducing scope creep and the like?
Yeah, scope creep was quite a big thing, and it really did put a lot of pressure on us. It's again like you had said, the whole bigger and better thing. It's a terrible curse. Is that you look at stuff and you think, oh man, no, we can't just settle for that thing. A good example is in the first one we didn't have ragdoll for the divers, and we could have probably got away with it. But it was something that we kind of forced and said, no, this needs to be in. And we're so glad we did, because it really adds to the experience when you see, the person's body flaying and all over the place. And again, then also with the sharks, we knew we had to go bigger, better, add more sharks, and the same approach is going to be done with the weapons. In the original Shark Attack, you only had a spear gun and a knife and your flash grenades, whereas we got a lot of things coming up. I mean, we've already got the chain gun in this one. We're going to have a trigger grenade, and we've got a really cool grenade style shotgun, which works really well. That should be. So that's all pretty much modeled and ready to go. It's just a case of us making sure that we've tweaked and tested it before we kind of let it out there. And also just kind of seeing what the reaction is with players and what type of weapons they actually want to see. But again, I think the experience with Shark Attack Deathmatch it's fairly unique. Although players want new weapons, they seem to be pretty happy with the standard spear gun. It just kind of makes for an interesting experience as you are swimming around. So I mean the challenge is to choose stuff that we will be able to achieve, especially as a two-man team, but also to kind of push ourselves and yeah, just see what we can actually get out there and keep the players happy.
How have you handled feedback to a game? Like, how do you determine, especially for a multiplayer game where something might make one player very happy and another thing might make a player very unhappy? How do you balance those needs and desires of your players without losing the original vision of the game?
It's always that was a really big challenge when we first launched the game Shark Attack Deathmatch 1. We had the difficulty right up. It was a lot more aggressive, a lot more hard, and we wanted it that hard because we thought that would add a lot more fear to the game, and we wanted a really good challenge, but. We had become fairly good at the game, so we could kind of work out how the AI would almost work and behave. So new players who got it were absolutely shredded, and there was and in our initial reviews we got slated for that. So we turned down the aggression, and we still got slated, saying that it was too hard. So then we turned it down again. So going with Shark Attack Deathmatch 2, we knew that was potentially an issue. So we improved the AI from that perspective to behave a lot more realistically. But I think there's a fine balance. There's still people who want the game to be a lot easier, and I think we've just made our final tweak to the AI to make it the sharks a little less aggressive. But there is a standard or a certain level that we're not going to exceed past. We do sharks to have that presence, and we do want them to have that fear, and we do want it to be a challenge. So. It is very tricky. Things like also with our shooting, obviously you're shooting a projectile, so you almost have to lead the other player while he's swimming ahead of you. People have asked for almost instant bullets, but kind of it takes away the whole underwater feeling, and we believe it adds a lot more skill, being able to try and track a player and shoot him, work out how far away he is, and sort of how quickly you'll be able to get there.
Yeah.
Also, it differentiates us again from the likes of like a Depth, which have gone with the very machine guns underwater, which are like instant shot sort of scenarios, and it's a route that we didn't really want to go. We wanted to make sure that our weapons were believable, and they kind of fitted in with the whole experience. And it's certainly
speaking of games like Depth and Stranded Deep, when you've got more games also doing also exploring the theme of having sharks underwater murdering you.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate yourself? Is it just focusing on that core deathmatch experience and do other aspects of the gameplay, or are there specific tricks you've learned from Shark Attack 1 that have informed the experience of Shark Attack 2 and made that better?
I think we just kind of going back to the a big way that we want to differentiate ourselves was by having really lush, very different, interesting environments, and to keep that underwater feel. A big focus also was obviously on the sharks, is they're the star of the game. So a lot of detail went in there with their movement, their AI, and just making them feel very believable and real.
How do you go about studying sharks? Did you go swimming with one yourself?
We actually have it. We do have a great aquarium, just not too far away. I mean, we certainly didn't visit it as much as we should have, but I've seen countless pictures of sharks. Trying to get the proportions and get everything right. Studied tons of YouTube videos. The most frustrating thing is, as with people, everyone's got their own different, they look different. With sharks, like you'll be studying a video or some reference shot of a shark, and like a great white, and in one shot it looks really fat, and you think, oh, okay, great, let's go with a nice big bulky look to it, and then you look at another video and you'll see a very agile, very slick looking, great white, same species, everything, and it looks almost completely different. So you end up doing
like
enough
if aliens tried to make a human model.
Yeah.
Their game.
It's exactly like that, and you think, well, am I capturing it right? I think for this, just in terms of the amount of detail that we wanted to do there, we did about three different passes just on the great whites alone, to try and make sure that we managed to capture that whole feeling right. And it's amazing how like minors, or some of the small nuances, like in terms of the head tilt being slightly more forward or further back when they're swimming, how that makes a huge difference to believability. So
Speaking of
yeah,
feedback, when people are expressing, for example, oh, this shark doesn't look right, the language that they use, especially when it's very non-specific, how do you pull the information that you need out of that?
yeah, we just kind of refine it. I think there's a lot of open-end stuff. Some people could say, I mean, they the AI is great, or but this doesn't look so, or they'll say, the sharks aren't, or for whatever reason. We've always had positive feedback about our sharks. I think that's where we're very fortunate. But I mean, in terms of say the weapons, they'll say this weapon sucks, and then you kind of try to narrow it down as to why they believe the weapon sucks. Is it the rate of shooting? Is it the damage that it can cause? Does it take too long to reload? So again, it's always good to get feedback, but it's even better to get detailed feedback as to what people's expectations are. I think the big thing is that people believe certain things are going to be a certain way, and you kind of have to meet the expectations. Like a lot of our sharks, when we first we took a lot of liberties in the scale of our great whites and some of the feature sharks. We did put them to scale in the game initially, and they just felt so small. And then we upped them and played it, and they still didn't feel big enough. So then we upped them again. So if you'll see our great whites, if you see them next to a normal player, I mean, these things are massive. But the only problem is that's opened us up now. The big request is everyone wants a megalodon. So now that thing's gonna have to be massive. Again, there an interesting challenge though is with the megalodon is that to build an environment, because everyone immediately assumes that the bigger the shark, the more harder it's going to be to kill, and the more aggressive it's going to be. But as soon as you start adding in big animals, or big the amount of areas that they can get to in a map suddenly becomes a lot more limited. So you could hide in let's say a cockpit or a small cave while that thing's lurking around, and it kind of takes away the fear. So we actually find that it's great to have the big feature sharks, but it's the little sharks that end up doing more of the damage because they can kind of get to wherever players can get.
Yeah, one of the scariest moments, I was playing some single-player survival while before this interview.
Yeah.
This is a fun game. Sure is.
I'm so glad he wrote a good comment.
I should hope that he's enjoying himself, murdering all of us. And yes, I think. Oh my gosh, we've all spawned in the same place.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
Kempi.
We did a small update to the spawn with the map that we launched yesterday evening. So it's something we'll probably have to quickly take a look at. I'll get Ed to take a look. It'll be just a small tweak. Yeah, we constantly refining. So you might find one or two issues, but generally it's pretty good for an early access title.
Yeah, I was just that was really surprising. Like suddenly I spawn and everybody's staring at each other, the back of each other's head like a conga line. It was really peaceful for like 3 seconds as everybody realized what happened, and then we all started murdering each other. So, uh, the reasoning behind having sharks subtract points. Why did you implement that feature specifically? Did you want dying to a shark to have real consequence to it?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to, again, it all adds to the whole fear experience. We didn't want it to feel like, it would be a conscious decision to to attack a shark. Again, you could play through this whole experience without actually even firing a shot at a shark if you wanted to. There's a lot of people in the local community who are very anti-us games with killing sharks and things. Whereas with this route, you don't actually have to kill it. But if you do start trying to antagonize it, they become a lot more aggressive. So we wanted it to be a case of while you were fighting your friends, that it might not be a good decision to shoot a shark amongst while a battle is ensuing, because then the sharks will become more aggressive towards you. And by having them remove points, it allows the game to fluctuate a lot more. You don't always just have the top guys just absolutely dominating. There is an element where they could actually drop down a few ranks, and again, there it adds to the fear of the sharks that if you've got a good lead, you might want to protect it by not necessarily camping. Because the sharks will come out and flush you out and whittle away your lead. You have to constantly be battling.
That is the best defense I've heard from a player, from a developer against camping. The sharks will murder you to death.
and it's true. It's incredible. The sharks do have a sense of smell, so they are able to track you down. And it's a trail-based smell. So if they do cross, what you won't see, obviously from a coding perspective, is that you're constantly emitting, what would be your scent from the diver, and so behind you there's a bit of a trail. So if divers, rather sharks, cross that, they may become a little bit more aggressive when they cross that scent, and then it's a good way for them to find you and kill you.
Man, I'm staring at the back of your... Oh, man. Now it's the front of your head. And it's so hard to hit you.
It's very hard. It's tricky. It's even harder when you're talking.
So, what is the most intense, or just most... Well, I'm sure you have a lot of stories playtesting and developing Shark Attack Deathmatch 2, but what's one of your favorite stories from the development and also playing the game? Like, what's the most shocking shark story you have from playing?
We actually had yesterday, because we were trying out the co-op elements for the new map, Terror of Atlantis, yesterday. So me and Ed were having a co-op experience, and it was just absolutely, it was mind-blowing. We've been playing this game now for well over a year during development, so you'd think at this stage we'd be really sick of seeing the same stuff over and over again, and it was just so refreshing yesterday to have a game in the new map, and for it to be incredibly tense to the point where we both were laughing, and there was the panic, and I mean, especially when you have the ragged-toothed sharks, they have such a huge presence, and there was genuine fear, because we're trying to post a leaderboard score for people to go after on that map, and we had kind of hoped that we would get through without dying. It would last the full 15 minutes, and it's just so hard. It's a tough game, but it's so good. So yeah, I think we had during that match we managed to get down to about five minutes, and in the co-op survival experiences, you don't have any access to medicine or healing abilities rather, and the weapons and ammo are split out, and there's only one oxygen tank. So between the two of you, between the two players, you have to kind of manage that. You have to say, who's going to go for oxygen, and there's a great little round.
Great Titanic-like moments, like go on without me.
No, you do. It's exactly that, and I think that's why we really want to get voice chat, into the game really quickly, because there's so much strategy around saying, watch my back, I'm going out to go and get some oxygen, and it's very much like those Titanic moments. It's like if the one guy's really battling or he's low on health, some guy will have to go out and sort of make sure that he's the one going to get the ammo, so he can protect the other player. It really is. That game mode ended up turning out so much better than we ever expected, and it's a lot of fun.
If I don't see at least one YouTube video of someone just going, "Nee, if I don't see at least one, I'm going to be very disappointed. Oh man. Ah. When you were, and what's interesting is we see the different names for the levels,
Yes,
tsunami, etc. Which one are we on right now?
we're in Boneyard, the Boneyard.
Boneyard. So, what goes into the naming of a multiplayer map? Is there a lot of disagreement around it?
There's again, there is a large portion of the stuff is sort of you trying to evoke some form of emotion when you're building the map and you're coming up with a scenario, and each map has its own potential to be its own little bit of marketing. I mean, the Boneyard kind of like evokes kind of that feeling of death. Um, and like there's almost a sense of wonder. So when people see that, say, a new map is being launched, and they see something like the lines of like tsunami or like Terror of Atlantis, immediately an image is painted in the person's mind, and there's sort of interest in going to check it out. It's certainly a lot better than calling like a map like U Hanger 57 or something along those lines, which are very generic or something. You just really want there to be an element of interest um, and again, there is just like some of the maps you'll see that there's a lot of descriptive words where we can tie in like Terror of Atlantis and Savage Borders and along those lines. Um, Probably they may come across as a little bit corny, perhaps, but generally people have been enjoying it.
When you're designing the movement of the, did you design the movement of the divers to at least be easier for people playing in VR? Because we have the virtual nose that helps you feel like you're a diver, the virtual mask. We have the diver's feet. Did you design this? How difficult was it making the movement system and everything to be like a true diving experience? And did you design it to be easier for players who were using virtual reality headsets?
Um, we are definitely going to go down the route of obviously supporting the Oculus Rift and some of the other VR headsets. I think right from the get go, we did want to try and sort of capture that realism. There was an area that we wanted to improve on from the last Shark Attack. Having the swimming hands coming in, being able to see the divers watch. It added a ton of extra work. It's incredible just by having that swimming arm to the left hand side added an incredible amount of work. Also, even just being able to have functional reloading animations. It really was. In hindsight, it may not have been probably the best decision, but it really has added to the realism. Yeah, well, I think with by having that hand, by having the mask and all that, it all just kind of immerses you in what we believe is the whole experience. Having the virtual nodes with that little bit of on the mask is definitely going to help from a nausea perspective with VR. But at this stage, it certainly wasn't built, or put in for that perspective initially. But yeah, it's going to be really really interesting to see what actually happens when we do start going down that route. I think it is going to be very conducive to a great VR experience. Is that the gameplay is a little bit slower than most other underwater, action titles, and there is because we've taken a lot of time to make sure we capture a lot of beauty in the environment. There'll be a lot to look at. So even if we start off initially as just a cage diving experience or just a exploration experience for VR, I think it should be breathtaking. It should be something really special.
When you're thinking about new modes, what goes into making a good mode for Shark Attack Deathmatch 2? Have you considered a campaign, a peaceful mode where you're just running around petting sharks with your knife
Yeah,
instead of stabbing them?
yeah, kind of going back to the that original that whole comment that I had made earlier around people. I think a lot of people appreciate the amount of effort that we have put into the sharks in terms of the realism and the beauty that they have. So they've requested that a lot of people requested an exploration mode where the focus is just on swimming with the sharks as opposed to going out and killing them. So that is something that we are considering. That whereas you're going out and finding items of treasure, and there's a leaderboard around that as to how many people, how many items you can find and where those particular items are. But a map like that would be massive, and it might be quite nice to have that as a co-op experience or a multiplayer experience where you're not killing each other. You're just going around swimming and exploring. So almost like a world of diving. Yeah. Again, and that would make an incredible mode for VR. So that is something that we are considering. That's been a big request from the community. But then on the flip side, people have also requested that they want to play as the shark. So that's something that and that side has been a lot more vocal. So we really want to do it special. We really, there's again, it's easy to draw comparisons towards depth. Obviously, that you play as a shark there, but we really want to go a different route. With depth, I think the sharks can lunge and do these sort of like unrealistic jumps through water and whatnot. We really want to make sure that ours feels believable and is not. It won't be from most likely won't be from a third-person perspective. It will be from a first-person perspective. So you probably have the jaws around the camera, as your HUD, just make the experience feel very different.
Has there ever been a piece of feedback or something that players have wanted you were specifically like that wouldn't work in this game? Has someone requested the Kraken? Because if not, I'd like to put that in.
Again, I think what is hard is like we do want to steer clear of the instant shots. It is something that we can do, but like a machine gun instant kill, and it's sort of. We don't really kind of want to go that route. We really like the way that our the weapons work, but again, it's something you kind of have to weigh up. If enough players want something along those lines, then you kind of have to look at it. You can't be completely stubborn. The other thing is like I mentioned earlier is the megalodon. Having a shark as big as it is, it starts becoming or introducing interesting challenges around how the maps work. Because they can't get into all the areas that divers can kind of get into. So I mean, it is something that we are considering, but it's not just a case of just make the sharks bigger. You want the behavior and everything to time appropriately. So there's a certain bar that we're setting, and we don't want to kind of take the easy route. We want our sharks to feel believable and behave interestingly. It wouldn't be fun if we just scaled up the great white and just slapped a different texture on them. It has to be believable. It has to, the AI has to tie in with that. So yeah, it's always interesting to with the suggestions. I mean, there's lots of like good stuff that we get. Like a lot of people want chum grenades, which is a great idea, and it's something that we are going to look at adding. But we also get some like other stuff as people requesting that.
A guy making chum grenades.
I mean, we had a great suggestion, and we spent some time thinking about it. As opposed to if you pull out the knife, you rip it off your arm. Someone suggested it would be great if the knife was rather on your leg. And in theory, that sounds great. Except when you're swimming around, that would mean that the player would have to stop. An animation of you looking down, grabbing the knife off the leg, would have to kick off. And then, I mean, especially in a deathmatch game, you kind of want the pace to be a little bit quicker. And if you have to stop when you're swimming, that would end up being a bit of a problem. I mean, it was a great idea, but it just kind of wouldn't have worked. Interestingly enough, to work out where to put the knife in order to rip it off your arm ended up being taking a lot longer than we had hoped. It was lots of trying to work out which way the handle of the blade would go in order for you to effectively pull it out and rip it out like that. But yeah, it's quite an interesting animation challenge.
So, doing everything as a two-man team, it's you and your collaborator Edward, right?
Yeah.
So how does it help having a partner in development, and how does it is it possibly more challenging?
I think it's certainly. I'd say the whole experience is awesome. I think from a motivational perspective, just having someone who's obviously in your corner and wants the game to be as good as you do certainly helps. We do have our own studios, so every day we kind of get up and we go to a place of work. And initially we were just working out of Ed's Lounge for a while. That's how we built the first Shark Attack. Um, but I mean, we've been mates since high school, so it's kind of it's really been a great experience. Also, it's really good when something good happens. You at least have someone to share it with, and kind of who's been through the same painful experiences as as you, as well as also when you do hits and downers. And I mean, a good example is when we first launched Shark Attack Deathmatch 2. For whatever reason, Steam, the game was almost hidden for 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
It didn't. Yeah, so that really hurt us in the beginning. But things are turning around now. But yeah, so from that perspective, it's great. I think I mean we do have constructive debates that sort of turn into not really heated arguments, but just interesting arguments. And I think it's actually good for the game. Unless you have a strong enough argument as to why you want something to be how it is, then it really makes us think about what we're doing. It's a nice collaboration. Generally, our ideas line up, but where we do differ. A small debate will ensue, and we'll try and find a happy middle ground. So it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. So, what are you working on adding to the game now? Like, what's your plans for the future of Shark Attack Deathmatch 2 for the immediate future and
Okay.
beyond?
Yeah. Okay, great. So you just introduced the new map as of yesterday, the Terror of Atlantis. Up next is, like I mentioned, we want to get player chat in, or rather voice chat in the game. So we're hoping to get that out this week.
I would
Kind
only
of
use
going.
it to play the Jaws theme song.
Yeah, and so we got that, and I've going to start working on new sharks. We're looking at introducing hammerheads, tiger sharks. There's a whole host. I think they're called the assassins of the sea. There's 3 types of. I think there's. I can't remember them. Right, I think there's similar to. I think it's like a thrasher style shark. So we're looking at all our. I think there's a lemon shark that we also want to bring through. Whale sharks as well. We believe are going to be quite iconic. So there's a whole host of sharks that we're going to be bringing through to the game. There's going to be we've got to add the 3 more game modes. We want to have capture the flag, but it'll probably end up being like a capture the trident type experience, as well as a team deathmatch. So that's what we've got planned on the horizon. But I think there's a small debate as to what we're going to do like immediately next. Either it's going to be the exploration mode, or it's going to be the play as a shark predator mode. And so far, I think the play as a shark predator mode is winning. So we hope to have that out in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So along with a new map. So there's a lot. As long ago, we did want to try and beef before we go out of early access to have over 8 maps. Currently, we're sitting on 5, and
How much time goes into making a map?
well, again, it would be so easy just to use the same assets and just quickly throw something together. But we don't really want to. We don't want to do that. We want each map to feel like its own experience. So there's a bit of conceptualizing and beforehand. But generally, we can get a map in. It takes between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the scale. I mean, we could do it quicker, but then we really want it to be an enjoyable experience.
Awesome. Yeah, that's huge. Um, and, and
Okay.
and so yeah, just thinking of the pure amount of work you guys can do and how much you have to go. How long will you guys be in early access?
Well, we're hoping to be out of early access by the end of October, but that certainly isn't the end of the road for for the game. That's just a case of we made a whole bunch of commitments that we said that we wanted to get out before we pushed it live. Again, there will be a whole bunch of other game modes. There might be specific challenges like where you have to say do an escort a particular diver, or protect a welder, or maybe even, I mean, there's an idea that we had of protecting. You have swimming with a school of whales. I think it's called a school.
Awesome. And any ideas for further single player experiences?
Yeah, well, I think one that like I mentioned, the exploration, and we also might try and do a bit more of a horror experience where you have to go out and collect particular items. But certainly at this stage, a good portion of our focus, whilst we're in early access, is going to be towards the multiplayer experience. I think if you have a good community, it's a great way to get friends, to encourage other friends to get into the game.
So early access overall has been a positive experience for you?
Yeah, it's again, there is we look at the stats and stuff, and there is a reluctancy from people to buy early access. We've seen our wish list, people requesting on their wish list grow quite nicely. So there's a lot of anticipation for when the game does leave early access, but then it's just convincing people to jump on board and take this journey with you as you develop the game. So there is a bit of that challenge, and I think there's a bit of a frustration as people might jump in and say, you guys have only got 5 weapons. This other game has this many, and kind of remind people again, that we are in early access. But like a good example, it's something that we took very, very seriously. We did not want the experience to be buggy at all, and we wouldn't have launched early access if if you weren't able to have a really good experience.
Which is interesting, considering most of the whole, at least stated purpose of that early access is okay. It's going to be buggy. It's going to be kind of weird for a while.
Yeah. We've both me and Ed come from a testing background, so we've been trying to it's always hard to cover all your bases, especially being a 2-man team. But we've taken a lot of pride in making sure that the experience is great, and it is, you aren't hindered. There's nothing more frustrating by saying it's like, I don't know, we'll fix that later. And we certainly don't want to be saying that every 5 minutes. So that's why we took a little bit of time before we decided to to publish it onto early access.
That's a really interesting and cool approach.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's just trying to convince people that the product is stable and solid, and a lot of people have been burned, like you say, by 80% of the other early access games. So we're hoping that this is something that stands in our favor, and people who have gone out and bought or have decided to be part of this whole experience early on, appreciate that.
Oh man, you got the health pack just before I could.
Just ran out of air, man.
How often do you see people using the knife, out of curiosity?
A lot. Initially, it was probably one of the most popular weapons. It was the weapon of choice, and then we had to tone it down a bit, and we turned it down way too much, and people complained and said there's kind of no point. So we're still trying to find that fine balance. It's the great thing about the knife, it doesn't sort of ensue panic in the place when you see someone coming towards you. It's a great option when other people are in battle, for you to sneak up behind them and take them out like that. But so it's a bit of a mix. So either people hate it and think that it's too powerful, other people think that it's too weak, and other people just don't even use it at all. They just stick with the standard spear gun.
Interesting, very interesting. So overall, if there's anything you could say to players or people who are interested in checking out the game, what would it be?
I think just again, we've set the price low to try and get as many people into the game to help build the community. It's certainly not indicative of the quality. We don't want people to think that this is a cheap knockoff of the other underwater titles. Again, there is this that we certainly haven't gone out and copied anyone. We probably the Shark Attack Deathmatch one was out before all the your depths and those and I think it's just we just really implore people to come and check it out, and obviously if it's not their cup of tea, there always is the refund option, which we wouldn't we wouldn't want you to use. But again, we really want people to sort of not make or base their assumptions on the fact that this is because our price point is a little bit lower, that this is a cheap knockoff, and we do believe we have something special, and we really want people to come and check out and kill some sharks with us.
Awesome, and I'd encourage people to. We still have some copies over at GamesMatter HQ if you'd like to get a copy today in time for Shark Week. Otherwise, support the developer on Steam, because as you can tell yourself, he's really cool, and this is a game worth supporting. I want to thank you so much, Neil, for joining us, and for supporting GamesMatter. I'm hoping that we can support you and you get some awesome coverage and feedback in the upcoming time. We actually, one of our the members of GamesMatter, Sam Sketch, he would actually like to have you on his show, his little radio podcast show, and several of the people, quite a few of the people actually playing right now are YouTubers as well. So I want to let you know that is going on.
Excellent. Thanks so much for kind of supporting us and taking the time to do the interview and actually jump in the game and play. It's been awesome.
It's been difficult.
Awesome. Difficult to talk and shoot, but I've never had to do this before, so certainly not for this length. But normally I'd go quiet and sort of trying to keep my swearing down. I don't know if any words had slipped out during the game, but if they have, I apologize.
No, you did a really good job of it. I've been tempted quite a few times. So yeah, this has been GamesMatter with Neil Jones of Lighthouse Studios. It's been an awesome time. You can check out Shark Attack Deathmatch 2 for yourself today. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, guys.